Madam President,
Senator from Iowa.
I ask for 1 minute in morning business.
Without objection.
I'd like to make a point about the so-called Green New Deal. It's very obvious it's a reference to Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal in the 1930s. The implication is that what the New Deal did for the Depression should be a model for the environment. There's just one great big problem. The New Deal in the 1930s didn't work. It didn't get us out of the Great Depression. The Depression didn't end until we entered World War II. Just like the original, the Green New Deal sounds like really bold action, but it's really a jumble of half-cocked policies that will dampen economic growth and will hurt jobs. Everything our government ought to be trying to do is to encourage economic growth and to create jobs. I yield the floor.
Just look at the Green New Deal. From what we understand, the American people can expect a government-mandated overhaul of every four-walled structure in America. A government-mandated overhaul of every four-walled structure in America. If that were not enough, an end to American fossil fuel and energy production from nuclear power plants. Of course, along with all the jobs that make both of those possible. And according to background documents, plans for a government guaranteed income. Listen to this, a government guaranteed income for those unwilling to work. All at the low price of an estimated, listen to this, $93 trillion. And of course, next came the massive one-size-fits-all government-run health care proposal, Medicare for none. Strips everything from our seniors' Medicare program but the name. Slaps that name on a new government-run plan, and they're so confident Americans will love their Democratic-designed insurance that they feel the need to outlaw competing private insurance altogether, just to make sure there's no competition. Democrats want to strip existing health plans away from middle-class families, even if they're happy with their current coverage, and inevitably hike taxes on those very families to pay for it. As I've said, Mr. President, none of these things Democrats have pulled off their far-left wish list have a chance of becoming law in 2019. A lot of it almost sounds like a stand-up comedy. But the underlying philosophy that all this represents is no laughing matter whatsoever.
Those Democrats who are breaking ranks, they don't view AOC as their boss. They don't want to be called a puppet of Nancy Pelosi. They make that decision. Now they have to make a decision as far as future votes that come up as well, whether or not they're going to be their own man, their own woman, or they're going to end up getting on board with AOC and her agenda as if she is their boss.
New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reportedly warning moderate Democrats their names will be added to a list of primary targets if they vote with Republicans. This after more than 24 Democrats voted for a Republican amendment in a gun control bill. Joining us now is a Georgia Congressman, Doug Collins, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thank you for being here this morning. So what do you make of this warning?
Glad to be here.
This reported warning from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to her colleagues.
Well, it's amazing to me. Number one, I did not know she was co-speaker with Nancy Pelosi, but undoubtedly she has risen to that rank of threatening people who don't follow the party line or her liberal socialist agenda. It's interesting to me also, though, that when I first went to Congress, I was always told that I was representing the district in which I came from. In fact, by the way, those are the only people that have cast votes for me. And so when to have the speaker and to have another freshman tell me that I'm going to be threatened with a primary, or I'm going to have support withheld, that's a really scary proposition for these members who are trying to represent their districts. And, you know, we're going to see what's happening. They have trouble with their own agenda. I can't help it if they put bad law up to be voted on. They're the ones putting that up, not us.
Well, this was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez taking it a step further from Nancy Pelosi, who said, quote, "We are either a team or we are not, and we have to make that decision." What does this tell you about their party heading into 2020?
It tells me that they're completely fractured. It tells me that, and also it's very concerning, and frankly, just from another perspective, I think the Ethics Committee would be interested that a lot of this conversation about support from the DCCC and also being primaried was discussed inside the Capitol. So this is, there's issues here that we're seeing it boil over to where they don't know what their agenda is. They can't keep everybody on the same page. So looking ahead to 2020, what is their agenda? They have one. They're furious at this president, and they're mad about the direction of the country, which the economy is actually doing well. That's going to be very difficult for them to maintain as they go through the next 18 months if all you're doing is trying to fly with blind rage and everybody have to walk the same line.
But she has proven, and going back to Ocasio-Cortez, she has proven to have some star power in her own party, and she faces some criticism within the Democrats that have come out and spoken out against some of her very, very far left-leaning policies. But you've seen a lot of support for the Green New Deal, for example.
It is amazing to me how in this day of politics that it is more about the appearance and flash than it is the substance. I have no problem with her doing whatever she wants to do as far as her, you know, appealing to a new generation, reaching out on Instagram or Twitter. That's fine with me. What bothers me is what she's actually advocating for. The new Green Deal, which is a completely unworkable, $93 trillion plan by one estimate. It also affects me when I start looking at the socialist tendencies, and also ask New York City how they're feeling right now about having jobs that are left from Amazon, when she also then said, again, a policy statement here said, we'll spend the $3 billion on infrastructure. She didn't even understand that it wasn't $3 billion sitting in the bank. It was about the jobs that were coming and the tax credits going to be offered. I have a problem with her policies. She can be a star all she wants to be, but I think in our party, I would rather be a star on policy than a star on flash.
All right, so that being said, how do Republicans run against this?
We keep pointing toward the policies. We keep pointing out the fact that on this week on gun legislation, which they wanted to promote, it will not do what they said it was going to do. In fact, it was actually perpetrating a fraud on victims of mass violence because it won't do what they said it would do. It also has problems. When we look at policy, we can make a case to the American people that the economy is doing well because we passed good legislation. The economy is doing well because of tax reform. The economy is doing well because of the president and deregulation. Our world standing is improved because the president has taken a strong stand across the world. We go back to what we do best, and that is making sure that the policy is right and making sure we communicate it. That's what we've got to do better on. In fact, I'm encouraging my Republican colleagues to do better on messaging, going home and making sure people understand why our policies are better and why their policies will actually hurt us.
Congressman Doug Collins, thank you.
It's always good to be with you.
All right, thank you.
She's me at the age of 26. When you have, long hair and your mustache is out to here, and you want to solve everything. You want everybody kumbaya, get around the campfire. Let them revel in the possibility that everything can be wonderful. That everybody in South Asia can have a Cadillac. I am not a socialist. I am a capitalist. I am a Republican. But I understand the generosity of the concept of socialism. Not the slow down for a second. She says.
They were not going for that. Geraldo Rivera defending AOC last night, but renowned economist Thomas Sowell warns that many who are enthralled with the ideas that Geraldo talks about embracing are just not looking at the evidence.
So many people today, including in the leading universities, don't pay much attention to evidence. When you see people starving in Venezuela and fleeing into neighboring countries, and realize that this is a country that once had the world's largest oil reserves, you realize that they've ruined a very good prospect with ideas that sounded good but didn't turn out well.
He makes a great point. Fox News roaming correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera, joins me now. Geraldo.
Hi, Malta.
So you got a lot of pushback there last night, and we're all picturing you sort of in your Che Guevara T-shirt with your big mustache. But I mean, there's this feeling, I do think that, that some folks think that it feels cool, right? That, socialism is sort of this idea that everyone should have equality and everyone should sort of get what they need from the bureaucracy. But the problem is that the bureaucracy likes to take over. I mean, it empowers government so extensively that it leaves the people with no power at all.
I may be the only person in the country who supports both Donald Trump and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Martha. In her case, the reason I am generally supportive of her is that she has been a tremendous inspiration to young people. She has gotten this whiny millennial generation off the couches in their mother's basements and instilled in them the possibility that they, maybe could even be more successful than their parents. I think it's been a woe is me kind of generation. They're laden with all the student debt.
But what in her message, Geraldo, is going to make them more successful than their parents?
That they can change the world, that they can seize the initiative, that they can be somebody, that they can, participate rather than drop out, that they can be energetic, they can be patriotic.
But she's espousing a system that will take away their power. That's what Sol is saying, and that's the underlying evidence that he talks about, that they're giving up their power.
I think that's going way too deep. I'm not arguing socialism versus capitalism or
I get that she's an
theory.
attractive character. Absolutely.
Well, there's definitely pride, ethnic pride and geographic pride. I think she's a great example to the youngsters in that congressional district and around the country in many ways. But I think that to be so harsh on her as if the Green New Deal was going to be legislation that's going to go into effect and cows can't fart and airplanes can't fly, I think that is a bogus way of looking at her and the class that she represents. This is the most diverse. It is in many ways the youngest. It is the most integrated Congress we've ever had.
I get you, but
let them express these ideas.
I understand that, but they also do not have a memory of the Cold War. They don't have memory. There are plenty of present-day examples, and they don't seem to believe that Venezuela accurately represents the danger of socialism to them.
Yeah, I was in law school in 1967, 1968, 1969. I got arrested in Washington. We were going to change the world. We didn't trust anybody over the age of 30. Our generation, maybe this generation is waking up the way mine did. Maybe we fell asleep, and now we passed the baton in our dreams to this next feisty generation. Let them make their mistakes.
We will watch.
Let them try to do something.
Nobody's stopping them. They are out there doing everything they want to do. And it is interesting to watch. Geraldo, thanks for being here. I just saw you on the street corner this afternoon. Now you're back in Ohio. That's why they call you the roaming correspondent. Roaming all day. Geraldo, thanks.
Cleveland.
All right, good. We'll see you later. Thanks a lot.